Welcome back for Let's Run Chapter 2, our third video in the series. I appreciate you sticking with me. I know that we're still kind of working out some of the kinks here. So I want to say thank you in advance. We're trying some new stuff. I've gotten rid of the teleprompter, so we're going to see if this feels a little bit more natural. And speaking of natural, or at least nature, check out Ecosia. They're not paying me, but they're a search engine that plants trees with their profits, and I just think that's pretty elvish. And if you want to smell like an elf, check out Figs and Feather Farm soap. One of my players runs a soap business, and she's got a lot of cool stuff on there. And I think it's good to support small business right now. They're getting crushed. So if you're looking for some gifts for a friend or just trying to live up that elvish fantasy, check out Figs and Feather Farms. Now on to Chapter 2. I'm Zach, and this is Failed to Crit. So in Chapter 2, we get out into the Dale, which is the large frozen glacier. There's a lot of points of interest out here, and you don't have to hit all of them. In fact, a lot of them might be better saved for after Chapter 4 as kind of like a level buffer or just kind of to help story tell. For me, I'm going to try and narrow it down to 3 or 4 locations before trying to nudge them into Chapter 3. While we're out here, things can feel a bit zigzaggy. Going to a location, coming back to 10 towns, going out to another one, coming back. And because of that, you open yourself up to a lot of random encounters and a lot of slog. One of the reasons they didn't do this map in a hex is because you don't want the travel to be the main part of the story. So for that, I'm going to really kind of try and narrate a lot of the harshness of the environment. There's a great random table that we're going to go over, but for me, I would really use a lot of discretion here. Right? If it takes 3 or 4 days to get to a location, that's a chance for 4 to 6 random encounters, which just is a lot of time, right? In your session, that can be a lot of roll initiative, a lot of combat, and your players may not feel like they're getting anything done. I'm going to scale it back, probably do 1 random encounter per session, maybe 2 if the session's on the shorter side, really using the random encounters as filler and not the meat to the story. When they hit level 5, I'm going to really nudge them towards Zardoc and the Sunblight Fortress. Keep an eye out for the longer story arc, right? We don't want them to be in session 20 and still be out in the middle of the frozen wasteland, not feeling like the story's progressing. I do like the random encounters that they provide for the Dale, as well as the blizzard mechanic. I think that it's very neat and very engaging. I just don't want to overuse it. Use the random encounters to help pace your session, and if you need to, it's better to load them on the back end, the return home trip. So we have some cool stuff here as far as the encounter table. And as you can see, it's rolled out with a D20, as well as the number of encounters per day is done with a D8. Again, for me, I'm not going to use the number of encounters table. I'm going to try and be more methodical in when my encounters come up. What I'm really focusing on here in the random encounters is the Avenartress White Dragon, the Orcs of Many Arrows tribe, the Frost Giant riding a mammoth, and the Cold Light Walkers. It's really important we don't accidentally kill the party on a random encounter. There's some cool storytelling encounters here that I would throw in at the end of my adventure just to kind of help build the world. The challenge with random encounters is that you really want them to either further the story or help create the world. If they're not done with that purpose, you run the risk of them feeling repetitive and needless. This isn't a video game. There doesn't have to be a level grind, and the way we're giving out XP, there's not really much reward to some of these encounters other than just for storytelling purposes. So if you feel like you got the point across, or maybe they completed a battle a couple sessions ago, you don't need to replay it. A lot of that stuff you can narrate. Again, don't repeat an encounter unless you have something to add. Make sure each encounter builds the world or adds to the story. For example, Avenartress, the White Dragon, I'm changing that completely. If that rolls up on my random encounter, I'm just going to have him swoop in and take one of the NPCs. Just right out of the blue, straight from the sky. I really want to build the level of terror that comes up in Chapter 5 and 6, and so we can kind of start to work with that here by making this White Dragon this omnipresent threat. Having him streak down out of the clouds and grab somebody and just fly off is terrifying, and it'll keep the party kind of looking over their shoulder for all of their time in the Dale. As the story is progressing, we leave behind the go here, go there quests of 10 towns in Chapter 1, and we really want to start building up the Duragar fight and the horror that comes in Chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7. So with the dragon, I can kind of plant the seeds to that and really change the narrative of the story. The party can't really beat an ancient dragon at this level anyway, and even though the book does give you a good Deus Ex Machina or cheap way out, I don't want to waste that here. I want to save that for the Dark Duchess as we build the anticipation and the scare factor for that end scene. Another way we can kind of build the terror of this story is with the cold light walkers. Imagine a glow-in-the-dark zombie with bright light shining out from all of its bandages and underneath all of its robes. Its staggered, methodical, rhythmic walk encroaching in on the party. This is true horror. It's a CR5. It can really mess the party up, and it starts to breathe life into what Auriel's doing in this realm. Having a couple of these start to trickle in and do their zombie walk out in the middle of the frozen waste is a really cool visual, and I think I'd really want to sell that, especially in the middle of a blizzard. Remember though, it's a CR5, it's hardy. Make sure you're giving it the narration it deserves. This should be one of the main villains of this campaign. Honorable mention on the random encounter chart, Awakened Beasts. If you've watched my previous videos, you know that I love the Awakened Beasts, and I just think that it's neat. It's a great visual to kind of sell the magic that's in this world, right? Even if it's just something you're narrating, like the party's walking by and a snow fox perks its head up and says, "It's rude to not say hello." That kind of stuff just changes the environment. You can use it for comedic relief, you can use it for tension, but it's something that's so out of the norm for our world that I love throwing it into their world. So it's not a knock on any of the other encounters or locales in this place. I don't mean it that way. There's some really cool things that the players may want to dive into. For me though, I've really narrowed it down to 4 locations that I'm going to try and nudge them towards. The Black Cabin, the Idascent Space Ground, the Lost Spine of Netheril, and the Dark Duchess. Everything else I might just leave as filler from after Chapter 4 as they're kind of wandering around. So why did I choose the Black Cabin? Well, for starters, we haven't really had any kind of puzzles like this, and it's a great change of pace. I like that it's unique. I like that there's a great visual of this cabin on the side of a cliff. There's lots of dangers to be had here, lots of checks to be made, and the book does a really good job of bailing out 1 or 2 characters that might die trying to solve this puzzle. That, and I think that the boon they get for completing it is really helpful. 10 temporary HP can go a long way in a lot of the fights that are coming up. There's also a great chance for narration here, and anytime I think that I can build the world and really get my players immersed, I'm really going to accentuate that, right? The sounds of creaking wood on the cabin as they walk around it. The visuals of one stepping through a rotted board and nearly falling off the cliff, or dying. The oddities they find inside the cabin, the clues they're looking for. I think that you can really dig into this part of the adventure, and it's just so different from everything else we've had so far. Keeping in that vein, the Idascent nautical spaceship is wild, right? Ancient Aliens kind of vibe to it. In fact, I may try and customize the whole session around an Ancient Aliens feel. Everything is so foreign. The walls of the spaceship being fleshy and gooey. You have bioluminescent orbs. All the mind flayers with their mouth tendrils. Everything is just such a weird mix of technology and organics and otherworldly. And for once, your players should feel lost here. They should feel like the weather and the tundra and all of the cold is secondary to how wonderful and foreign this ship feels. We get some cool characters too, and I think it's very rare that you get to be on the side of mind flayers. So the fact that 2 of them are asking for help to get out of here, I just like the roleplay opportunity. I have these visuals of these 2 kind of snooty, kind of overconfident mind flayers working to fix their ship. They're 3 little squidlings running around, almost like toddlers, right? Constantly trying to mouth the player's brains like a baby trying to eat a beach ball, just mouthing it and not having any sort of luck, not even realizing it's rude to try and eat somebody's brain. All of that leading to just a really cool narrative tale. In addition to that, I would totally play it off in 10 towns. No one in 10 pounds would believe they saw the ship or what's going on. Everyone would chalk it up to being snowblind or out there too long or them being delusional. I just think that's a really neat dynamic to play on. The Lost Spine of Netheril is a chance for us to plant the seeds for Chapter 6 and Chapter 7. And anytime we can foreshadow and give the player something to look forward to, I try and lean in on that. I think the visuals of being upside down, or rather having the crash be upside down and them walking along the roofs, is very cool. And the whole dungeon being stone-shaped would give a very cool narrative, right? Everything's 3D printed, so it's all smooth. There's no brickwork. There's nothing for them to grab onto. It's a very specific style that everything's crafted in. You have all of the lights upside down, the flames burning down towards the ground. Everything about it just showcases magic and the level that these wizards possessed. And there's some unique challenges moving room to room. Just the fact that they're having to hop over the door frames because it's upside down is kind of a cool visual. And again, anytime I can try and bring my character's imagination to life, I'm really going to stress that. And finally, the Dark Duchess. If all of my random encounters were placed right, and I've had this white dragon preying on the party for the last few sessions, this should play so well. We've got a dark, frozen, abandoned ship to explore. We've got a pile of loot that will distract the players, and when they're down in the hold trying to free this loot, all of a sudden the dragon lands on top. Shock and an awe that you can sell here. The ship creaking and bowing under the weight of this giant dragon. The dragon letting out that it smells the players and that it knows that they're thieving and trying to take its hoard. The terror of the visuals as the dragon peeks its head into the cracks of this ship looking for the players hiding behind pillars, shaking and realizing that this monster outside is way beyond them. And as we get into combat, the dragon literally ripping up planks and boards, shattering the ship, trying to get at the players. If we're telling this story right, it should be absolute terror. And I wouldn't let my players get out of here without having to sacrifice another NPC. So the weight of this adventure really sinks in. The book gives us a great Deus Machina, like I said. I like it, right? But you don't want to overuse it, and you really only get to play it once without it feeling really cheesy. And if they lose one or two people here, this will sit with them for the rest of the campaign. Now, I know there's some other locales on here, and you might be leaning towards that, which is great. If there's something that catches your eye, or you feel there's better storytelling at one of these locales, you can use whatever you want here. Just keep in mind, we want to kind of push them, once they're level 5 or 6, towards the next chapter. If they're too strong, the mechanics don't work right. We really don't want this chapter to turn into a slog. We don't want to be here for 10 or 12 sessions as they're marauding through the snow. After they make it back from the Dark Duchess, kind of shooken up about the loss of the party, I'm going to push them straight into the Sunblight Fortress. So hopefully you got some inspiration here or something you might like. If you did like it, bonus action that like button, share and subscribe. Keep in mind, every new person that sees a D&D video might be a new player at your table, or maybe even a new DM starting up a game. So help share the channel. I really appreciate it. I'll try to roll better the next time. See you for Chapter 3.